Hi there, it's Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies. Thank you so much for signing up for the Ethical Marketing Starter Kit. It should be on its way to your inbox right now. One of the biggest areas that almost everyone who comes to my live workshops says they're struggling with, and entrepreneurs I meet and I work with, is how to articulate what they do. So I want to share a five-step formula that you can use to articulate what you do. This is tried and true. This is old, reliable, and I'll give you a few examples along the way. And then you'll notice below there's an offer that I'd like to make you. So when we go to articulate what we do, the biggest mistakes that people make is they talk about uh, what I call the boat. Our ideal clients are on island A, they want to be on island B. Our business is like a boat that can take them from one island to the other. So mistake number one is people just talk about the boat. They say, well, I do massage, I'm a coach, you get the idea. And it doesn't mean that much to people, or even worse, it might mean something that isn't what you wish it did mean. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. Or people, instead of talking about island A and island B, they talk about, well, here's what I think you need, and here's what I want for you. But that's different than the painful symptoms somebody has and the result that they're craving. So that's a big mistake. And this five-step approach will help you deal with it. So let me walk you through it. You might want to take notes on this. 5 steps. Step number one, when somebody asks, what do you do? What they're at one level asking is sort of, and they're curious about is, will this be relevant to me or not? And of course, in most cases, it's not. But they're wondering, who is this for? That's one of the very first things we're all listening for is, who is this for? Is it for somebody like me? Is it for people I know? Second thing people want to know is, what problem does this service solve? So if you have a product, it's pretty easy, hey? Because you say, well, I sell iPhone covers, and this is an EMF protecting iPhone cover, and that's what we sell. Well, I can see it, I can hold it, I can look at it, I know what it is. Pretty simple. But if it's a service, it's more intangible. And so the first thing they want to know, who is it for? But then, what problem does this solve? Could this solve a problem I have this service or not? Will it solve the problem of people I know and care about or not? The third thing that people want to know is, what's the result that it's offering? What comes out on the other side of it? What's island B? Is it going to help them get something that they're craving? Because if those three things are not there, it's just not relevant to them. And they will continue to listen at a party. Somebody says, what do? You explain it. If it's not relevant, they'll listen, but with polite interest. Oh, well, tell me about what got you started with that. So good to meet you. Have a good day. That's it. And the challenge is, you might be talking to your ideal client and they wouldn't know it, because they say, what do you do? Oh, I do kind of coaching, I don't know, personal growth stuff, a little bit of woo-woo. That's often how people describe what they do. They talk about the modality and in such an unclear way that even if their ideal client was right there, they would just walk away. So first thing, again, recap. They want to know who it's for. Number two, what's the problem? Number three, what's the result? Number four, and this is critical, people want to hear a story, an example of how this works, a case study, yeah, a before and after. And then the fifth, people want to hear how you do it. And that how is often very practical. For example, does this service happen over Zoom? Is it with asynchronous messages sent back and forth, like little voice notes back and forth? Is it live in person? Am I being touched by you? Am I lying down? Am I sitting in a chair? What's happening? People want to be able to picture the thing themselves. So those are the five: who, problem, result, story, how. Now we can make that a little more user-friendly and turn it into a series of sentences, a series of phrases you can complete. So check this out. It sounds like this. You know how these kind of people struggle with this kind of problem? Well, what I help them do is get this kind of result. For example, here's the story, and the way I do that is this. So those are the five blanks to fill in. So in my case, for example, if somebody met me at a party, they said, what do you do? I mean, I often joke and I say, I do marketing for hippies. They usually laugh and say, oh, they need that. And I say, it's true. But then I'll continue. I'll say, you know how there's so many of these uh, kind of hippie entrepreneurs, they're life coaches, they're holistic practitioners, they do permaculture, and they just struggle with marketing. They're so reluctant to do it. They keep putting it off. They know they need to do it, but they don't do it. And they feel torn because they feel like, well, I either need to do a kind of marketing that is unethical, but it works, or I do this ethical stuff, but it doesn't work. And of course, neither one works. So I help them figure out a way to market themselves in a way that feels genuinely good to everybody involved, including witnesses, people who just see it. It really feels good to everybody, but it also gets results. So that's how I might fill in that sentence. And I thought it might be helpful for me to give you some examples from my clients so you get a sense of what the stories can look like. So I'm going to do a little screen share here. Okay. Well, this is one of my favorite ones these days. This is Nisanka. That's her website, coachingwithnisanka.com. And you can see the headline here. This is her homepage. Are you parenting with a narcissistic partner or ex? Right? So that is a case study of Island, right? Are you a parent? Great. We know the who. You with a narcissistic partner or ex. You know if you're that person on Island A or not. And then we jump to Island B. I can help you preserve your sanity, take your life back, and help your children thrive. Those are things that her people are craving. That's not what she wants for them. They're coming to her saying, I am losing my mind. I feel like this has completely taken over my life and I see my children suffering. Yeah. So this is the positive version of that. She knows that they're craving it with that. So of course, if you know anyone, send them there. But so when Nisanka began working with me, she didn't have this clear niche. But through various conversations, around niching, this came up. And she realized, oh my God, this is something I've gone through, which is often a good clue around niche, something I've gone through, and this is something I could really help people with. And so she decided to focus on it. And everything is getting a lot easier for her. She's getting a lot more response to podcast interviews, having a much easier time finding clients, even though she's in the very, very beginnings of this. And she's sort of phasing into the business. She's not even full time on it yet. But everything is going to be much easier for her. Again, figuring out her point of view and philosophy, it's much easier because there's a point of view on this, and it's something that she's having no trouble articulating her philosophy, her understanding, her journey to be. Whereas she might have if it was generalized life coaching, this kind of work. She's having a much easier time with the business model because the business model is the structure of your business. So, well, but offers for whom? What are you going to, who are you offering it to? Because different people want different things. Much easier time also on finding hubs, which is the key thing. If you want to actually get in front of your ideal clients, you got to know who you're trying to get in front of. And so she knows, and I'm not worried about her at all. Let's go to another one. So this is Megan Montero, who's in my membership right now, and she's got this amazing eclectic mix of modalities. Feng Shui, she does house clearing as well, decluttering, and holistic healing from a indigenous Mexican tradition. So that's a lot of, that's a very eclectic looking boat. And if you met her at a party and she says, oh, I do all these different things, what would happen is you get confused. Yeah, the confused mind says no. That's so important. The confused mind says no. And people just wouldn't get it. What do those things all have to do with each other? I don't know. Polite conversation, they leave. Again, even if they're her ideal client. But her story was that she had gone through some very intense chronic illness. And a combination of the feng shui, the redoing her home, and this healing work in Mexico healed her chronic illness when Western medicine had failed. So I said, well, couldn't that be something, at least as an offer to focus on? So she's decided to really focus on her whole website. And you can see here it is on the homepage. You've probably been reading it. Create a home that helps you heal. Do you have chronic illness, a chronic illness like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, or autoimmune condition? And then, yeah, but so what we've got here is Island A and Island B. Now there's more to our website. Of course, you can check it out, monterohealingarts.com. But we have what we need for those first three. Yeah, we know who it is. It's somebody with a chronic illness like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, or autoimmune conditions. So we know who that is on island B. We know that they want to heal. And there's a bit of the point of view in that. Of course, they're not craving to create a home that helps you heal, but in the rest of her write-up, what she gets into is making the case for working with your home and feng shui as a way to support your healing. And in fact, as one of the primary first things you need to do to really begin the healing process. And she's been getting great response. She just got brought into, there was a local business. I'm trying to remember the name of the business. Maybe it was a holistic center, or was it kind of, I think it was an eclectic shop that in the holistic vein. And they brought her in to do a presentation. And I think two of the people that were at that presentation booked her as a result of her talk on this topic. Okay, last one I'll share is, this is a client of mine from a mentorship that I used to have years ago, Larissa Noonan. So you can see larissanoonan.com/fundamentalism. Want to be a witchy healer, but grew up in a fundamentalist home or culture. Support for the aspiring and closet good witches, heathens, and elders in training recovering from a fucked up childhood. I was very proud of that headline when I wrote it. But here's the story of how this came about. Larissa was, she does work with Daniel Foor's ancestral healing stuff, but of course nobody knows what that is, especially not 5 or 6 years ago or something when I was working with her. And we were chatting about it, and I said, I noticed you've made reference a number of times to having grown up in a fundamentalist Christian home and overcoming that, and that you've had a lot of clients that are that. She said, yeah, that's true. And I said, how would you feel if 80% of your clients were this? And she said, that'd be amazing. I said, why don't we just try that? Let's just focus on that for a while, just to experiment. And she got so excited about it. By the way, that's a very good sign that you're on track with your niche. She got very excited. And here's something else that lets you know you're on track with your niche is people who hear it say, well, of course. All the people who know you and love you, when they hear it, they say, well, of course that's your niche. So she told her husband, he said, I think this is going to be my niche I focus on. He looked at her and he said, I could have told you that. And so she killed him where he stood. 10 years. He'd known this, but just hadn't said anything, even knowing she was struggling. But of course, they can't tell you up front, but they can reflect it to you. When they hear your real niche, the people closest to you who love you will say, that's it. Yeah. And now this has become her whole business. Yeah, she's offering as one-on-one work, helping people get over the rigid fundamentalist programming they grew up with by dealing with the trauma, connecting with their older, wiser ancestors. It's beautiful work. So there you go. That's what I wanted to share. Those are the 5 steps. Again, in a sentence, it sounds like this. You know how these kind of people struggle with this kind of problem? Well, I help them get this kind of result. For example, insert story, as I've shown you here. And here the way I do that is this. Yeah. So let me do one more for you. So you know how a lot of service providers, particularly in the conscious hippie scene, really struggle with articulating what they do. They're at a party and somebody says, what do you do? And they just, oh no, and they stumble and they leave and feel embarrassed. And there's a kind of sense of shame of, I should be able to articulate what I do. And it's a particular problem because then they go to put it on their website and they can't. What do I say on my website? Even that is hard. A business card, what do I say? So I help service providers do that. Find a way to articulate what they do in a way that is short and pithy, that has their ideal client say, oh my God, that's me, not, that's nice. Good that you're doing that work. But that gets a really strong response. So for example, well, I've given you the examples, but one of the ways I do that, certainly, you know, I work one-on-one with people, but I've also created a number of materials and I'd like to offer them to you at a special deal, just in thanks for signing up for my starter kit and entering into my world. Thank you so much. I know there's so many coaches and offerings out there, many of them very fine, doing wonderful work, but this is my way of saying thank you for stopping by. So normally it would be $90 for the things below, but I'm offering them to you for $50, so there's $40 off. And there are 3 things that you get. Number 1, there's 2 webinars and 1 ebook. One of the webinars is the How Do I Articulate What I Do webinar, which goes into much more detail than the little brief bit I gave you here, but the same kind of content, but expanded quite a bit. Second thing you're going to get is my crystal clear ebook. And this is an ebook with tons of examples. I think there's, I don't know, 16 examples, full examples with the stories. And then there's a number, I think 40 different examples or more of these island A, island B. You know how these kind of people struggle with this. I help them get this. Because sometimes we just have to read example after example of clear examples to really have it land. And the last thing is my ideal client webinar, which takes a lot of this work and starts to really hone it and massage it so that when somebody says, well, yeah, who do you work with? Who's your ideal client? You have an answer that's very clear. That would let the person you're talking to know if they're the person, but also might flag for them, I know just the person. So remember, the confused mind says no. Whether you take me up on the offer below or not, whether you get any more help from me or not on this, I hope you will deal with this. How do you articulate what you do? Because a confused mind says no. If people are confused about what you do, it's done. It's already over. And it doesn't matter all the other fancy bells and whistles and the Facebook ads and the apps you create and the books you write. If this isn't handled, nothing else works because you haven't established the relevance, which is step number one. But if you do establish the relevance, everything else becomes possible. So enjoy the starter kit. Thanks for stopping by. And hopefully we'll see you down the road, maybe in my Facebook group, one of my online events, maybe in my membership. Take care.